Welcome to the Crucial Convo podcast. I'm excited to talk about this. Me and my comrades last week, me, B.A. Odias, we do our typical thing every week. We had a conversation last week about the male female gender discomfort or gender war that
Ending
seems to be
war.
going on in society. And it was all men. So I wanted to run it back this week and have females on the panel and kind of just start a conversation about our perspectives on the male female issues that's going on in society. I mean, I don't think it's anecdotal. I think it's something that it's not all of us, but again, I think it's something that's permeated our culture to a point where men and women have become, they've almost acted like they're two different species now. You know what I mean? That don't
It's a
need
real
each other.
thing.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
so I want to let the ladies kick it off and talk a little bit, just a little something about what do y'all feel? What do y'all feel? How do y'all feel all this started?
I feel it started a long time ago when they offered, let's say, all of these resources that we can receive, food stamps, and moving into these Section 8 communities where the government is clearly in control. I feel like the government has definitely created an atmosphere that has caused the male um, the male to really be pushed out and pushed away. And I feel like because it's such a comfort for especially single black women who are, they're raising children on their own and they're given all of these resources, it kind of makes us comfortable to a degree. And I feel like, yeah, it started with the government, honestly. They definitely don't
Okay.
encourage black men being in the home. They don't encourage that at all. They even have, when you're under Section 8, I have never been under Section 8, but I have been told that they do take walkthroughs in your house to make sure that there's nobody there but you and your children.
Right.
And, if
And
you violate these things, then guess what? You don't get all of the resources that the government has to offer.
She said a lot right there. I agree with it as well. She said it started a long time ago. I kind of consider that recent because like I go from like back in the days from like when I was a kid, and at that time we had uh families were together, people were married, everyone was married at that time. um you had like there was barely like no internet, and things like that. And I feel like there's just been such a huge change since then. There's been like a lot of women. We have um how do you say it? We've definitely just been improving ourselves, in life. Whereas before, the man is always to taking the lead, like in the household and things like
Right.
that. But now, you had like stay at home moms and things like that. And so like now we're out there and we're like getting educated, in school, and there's a lot of single mothers out there, who don't have, a husband, and, things like that. So I think that I totally agree with what she was saying. It's definitely started then.
Okay. All right. In true
absolutely.
fashion, we gotta let the women get that thing off.
Well,
What you got to say, Diamond?
I definitely agree with the ladies here. I really think that the adversarial relationship between men and women, the origins of it to me are twofold. When you go back to like the this when you look at the rise of women's rights from starting from like in the 60s, trying to break that 50s version of the stay-at-home mom who's just wearing the apron and making the
Hmm.
perfect little homemaker, but don't have an opinion about politics or business or sports or entertainment or anything like that. And over time, as women started to demand equal pay, equal rights, and started to gain visibility in the areas of sports and politics and entertainment and started to create this power shift in areas that were male dominated, that started to make men feel more marginalized in these areas. The second part of that is, of course, the breakdown of the nuclear family, where less men are in the
Right.
household. And I do believe, yes, the government perpetuates this singleness by, okay, well, now you can't have a man in the house, but you have men who are leaving their families and not taking care of their responsibilities, therefore forcing women to become the mom and the dad and the chef and the chauffeur and the baker and the candlestick maker and you know what I mean? It's like now we
All
have to
right.
we are put in a role where we have to do everything. And then men get upset because it's like, well, you too strong, you too independent, you too this, you too that. Well, what am I supposed to be? You know what I mean? I'm in a situation where I have to do these things. So if I have to take on all these roles, then don't accuse me of being too anything when I'm taking care of the responsibilities that I have to make. And now we have more women in positions of power, these billion-dollar companies that are being led by women. You got Rent the Runway, Act One, Spanx, and I would say one of the main women who's an example of this power shift is Kim Kardashian. She was known for a sex tape, right? But she decided that, okay, y'all put me on blast, but I'm not going to be known just for that. I'm going to take this attention that I'm getting and turn it into a fortune. And that was smart of her. So what was meant to embarrass her and put her on blast, she spun that around, and a lot of people, not just men, didn't like that. It's like, wait a minute, you supposed to stay in your corner and be embarrassed by this tape, but she was like, nope, watch me be a businesswoman.
No.
Whether you like her or
I
not.
don't think that was ever meant to embarrass her. That wasn't the purpose of that tape.
Well,
That tape was meant to make her famous.
why does any man leak a sex tape?
Ho-
To embarrass you,
ho-
Wait,
I think.
her mom
Hold on.
leaked it. It wasn't a man.
Be it. You
Her
run it.
mom
I'm
put
gonna
that
run it.
out there
I'm gonna run it back to
in order
Angela
to
in a
make her
second.
famous.
Can I just say I'm glad that you mentioned that because I really feel like the definition of a woman has been altered, which is why we're having a lot of issues in the black community with our black relationships. I feel like the women that we see on TV that we're trying to portray are not in actuality the type of women that a black man actually wants, to be honest with you. And I feel like that is an issue in our community. I feel like we look at the Meg Thee Stallions, we look at all of these women that are selling sex. And for me, I feel like if you are wanting to be in a relationship that actually lasts, that you shouldn't build a relationship off of sex alone. And I feel like with the
No, those
images
relationships
and the
don't
imagery,
last. Relationships don't last.
but I feel like with the imagery that's being presented in the news and media, with Kim Kardashian especially, she is a very perfect example of sex being something that is successful. And I feel like for black women, I feel like we have to stop looking at men for what they can do for us, and start looking at what we can do for ourselves and building more value in ourselves, because that will sustain the relationships that we're trying to have. When it comes to, I'll be quite honest with you, I am a mother of 4 kids. I have 2 failed relationships. But let me tell you something. I've learned from those 2 relationships, and I feel like being something attractive, trying to attract yourself and be sexual and all of that kind of stuff, it's not attracting the right type of man, because everybody wants to have sex. Everybody wants to have sex. But who are you?
Right.
When you have sex, there are consequences. You have children when you have sex. Kids come about. So we have to start looking at the value of a person, not based on money, not based on how good that girl sucks the D on that sex tape, because that's what everybody's looking at Kim Kardashian on, and I feel like for me, it shouldn't be a base of success in anything, not in your career, not in your relationship, not in anything.
There was a point where we talk about black families. We used to raise kids, specifically daughters, to look for marriage, right? And that somehow along the way turned into, we raised them to, you don't need a man. That became the mentality of how we raised our kids. Now we're looking at a generation that was raised on, you don't need nobody, because that's what the mothers were teaching the kids. That's how we
Right.
got to modern day where we are. Everything, is it Angela? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Everything you said was 100% correct in terms of the origins of it. But modern day, that generation where the men was pushed out the house, those daughters were raised up to, you don't need a man. And there's nothing, in a sense, there's nothing wrong with that in terms of a girl growing up to be independent and kind of taking care of herself, but it also minimizes that family structure that we used to have. And that's where, to me, there's a spot somewhere between the 70s and now where that shift happened.
Well, and you know
Yeah.
what, B, to chime in on that, that was exactly so, and I was telling my sister earlier, that was the thing. Like when we think about where we at in society like now, because the whole point of having these type of conversations, it really isn't about us, right? We're adults, we've made a lot of decisions and we've lived our lives to a certain extent, right? So the question is, I always say, you get to the truth of things as to what would you tell your kids, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Or if you don't have any children, what would you tell the kids that you're going to have, or what would you tell like your little sister or little brother? What would you tell the next generation coming up?
Yep.
So
Yep.
my thing is, I totally agree. I mean, I see it again. I see everybody's perspective, and I feel like when it comes to the women, we have raised. I have a daughter, so I do think about, well, what do I tell her as she grows up? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's only 7. What do I tell her? How do I tell her to interface with men? And what are the things I tell her? So I think one of the things, I've said it before, we got to work on with girls. We have to work on girls' judgment, so girls have good
Mm-hmm.
judgment, right? Early on. We have to work on our girls very, very early. And I think a lot of times we miss out on guiding our girls or helping our girls to have good judgment, because that's where you could get tripped up. And then for men, we have to teach them to be, responsible with choices that they make. So at the end of the day, judgment will help the girls decide, okay, who are the men I'm interfacing with in my life. But you're gonna make mistakes. That's just life, right?
Yeah.
But in order to understand how to interface or how to fix mistakes or go on to a different level, if you make mistakes, and say, okay, you know what, I'm tightening up my judgment this time, next time around. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And for men, you got to feel like, for me, I couldn't sleep if I walked away from my kids, regardless whether I was with their mother or not. I couldn't sleep not knowing where my kids are, as a
Right.
man. So for men who are able to just walk away and not be involved, we got to make sure we don't raise men like that either. You know what I'm saying? So
I
I
absolutely
agree.
agree with that.
I agree. As men, we have to hold each other accountable too. Like I don't want men around me who don't take care of their kids. You know what I'm saying? And I think you have to call them out on that when that happens. So I'm just saying we have to call them out on that. We can't act like it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, the relationship with the mother is one thing, but that also leads me to, well, how can I say this? A lot of parents, I won't even put it on one gender or the other. Parents are instilling their own relationship trauma into their kids. And that's also how we got to this point. You know, that's all part of us having to grow and heal ourselves before we
right,
can, because they're teaching the kids, but teaching them the wrong things.
Hmm.
So
right,
a
Yep.
lot of that comes into play.
Because I feel like the relationship that the son has with their girlfriend or their wife or the mother of their children, it stems from the mother, their mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there is a lot of men out here that are raised in single family homes that have resentment with their moms, to be honest with you, because they've seen their mothers do certain things that make them go out into the world, impregnate women, and treat the women the same way they wanted to treat their mom, but they couldn't because that's their mom.
Yeah, fully agree. You ain't missed
Yeah.
yet.
What you gotta say,
I
twin?
absolutely believe that there's a lot of we do need to raise our black men to respect black women, respect. We have to be, first of all, we need to be respectable. We need to behave as mothers,
Right,
as black mothers, behave in a way that is worthy of respect. Because how you raise your children to respect you is how they're going to respect other people. And we're not raising
right,
our men in a way that says, okay, this is a black queen. If you want to be treated as a black queen, you need to raise your son to show him what a black queen is, show him how a woman
right.
is supposed to behave, and show
Yeah.
him how you are supposed to treat people. And so we have these men. First of all, if you start out, if you don't respect your mama, you're not gonna respect anybody. You're gonna be out in this world talking to people any old kind of way because you feel like you're trying to demand something that you didn't get at home. And then we're teaching our daughters to, well, just take what you can get, because if that's what you did, you just took what you can get and you allowed men to treat you any old kind of way.
Right.
You're passing that, like you said, you're passing that
Then that's
relationship
all you
trauma
know.
on to your child and say, well, okay, he hit you, but what did you do? Oh, he slapped you, girl. Okay, well, y'all got kids together, y'all got to stay together. And all I've heard so much since I've really started advocating for domestic violence and kind of telling my story. I've just heard so many stories of just utter nonsense, of, you know,
Yeah,
from their own families or the families of the guys telling these women to stick it out. Oh, he's beating your ass. Oh, he might kill you, but oh, you need to go ahead and just and make that work. Well, he's got issues and all these excuses. And it's like, man, it just shines a spotlight on a generation of just trauma just being passed down from one generation to the
Yeah.
next, from sibling to aunt to uncle to mom. And it's like, how can all these people be wrapped up in all this dysfunctional thinking? Well, because that's all they know. That's what they've been raised to believe.
Exactly.
well, I
So
like that. I like that. I wanna on that point you just said, and fine, I'm gonna let you jump in too. You can obviously hop in whenever you want to hop in, but um, I want to pivot on a particular point you said, twin. So you said about women sticking it out in relationships. So I wanted to like pivot a little bit. When it comes to sticking in relationships, we all know that women generally leave relationships more than men, and I know that that's a big thing. Everybody says like 80% of divorces are women or initiated by women. Um, I want to add context to that too. So I tend to think that women leave relationships more because I think men won't leave a dysfunctional relationship. To be honest with you, I think we're more likely to stick into a dysfunctional relationship and maybe just have a side girl or whatever. But typically we won't leave as much. So I think that's one point. However, the point I wanted to dip into is that now the other side of it is I think we have a pandemic or epidemic of women who leave relationships. Now, this is not women who are getting their asses kicked or getting, physically or verbally abused. I think we also have a subset of women who leave relationships because what they expect from the relationship, and this is what I'm getting from society. They expect a man is not here to entertain you and and do jumps and tricks and keep you happy. This whole idea that a man is going to keep you happy, I think we've gone too far with that. It's gone too far. And there's women leaving relationships because, oh, I'm bored. If you're bored, find something to do.
get a
Learn
hobby.
how
Right.
to fulfill yourself and be a whole person. So I think that we have to stop. We got to really help women to stop looking at their relationship as the man's sole purpose is to make you happy. That's not what a man is for. So I wanted to
Yeah.
see what everybody's opinion on that is.
I hate the
I would
phrase. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
what you just said. I totally agree with that. I also believe that it's the same thing on the other end because I believe that men desire attention
Hmm.
as well. And this may go like a little left, but I now I feel like men are turning to other men since they're not getting
Oh, this
you know.
lady went left.
Oh,
No,
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's because they've been
I
molested.
think it just turned into a brick wall.
I hear you.
It's because another man molested him. Okay, we're not gonna give no
Yeah,
excuses for these men that are out here turning to other men. Okay, they done had past experiences, and then they got in a relationship. They were unhappy with that woman, and then went back to what the original.
LaFonda, mute your mic for that one. I'm messing.
Mm-mm.
yeah. I
No,
forgot what
no,
I was gonna say.
no. Go
Denise. All
ahead, go
right,
ahead.
come back. No,
Go ahead,
come
please.
back. I forgot what I was gonna say.
No, I was
Yes.
look. Wow.
Yeah,
I was gonna
that's
say
pretty
Any
though.
everybody.
man that goes to another man because they had a bad relationship with a woman was already with the man previously.
Was
Trust
all
me.
Yeah, was
Yeah,
already gay.
yeah.
I'm saying though. I'm
And
saying
we can delve into that, but
that ain't got nothing to do
I
with
have
no woman.
I have a thought about the other side of that, about the female version of that too. But
Okay.
um, to your point, Sue, the phrase "happy wife, happy life," I hate that because it really, you know what I'm saying. It speaks to the man's purpose is only to make you happy. Happy spouse, happy house is pretty
Happy
much the
spouse, happy
better.
house.
That's that everybody in this house should be adding to the house. You know what I mean? It's not about
I
simply
like that.
making the wife happy. I'm not gonna pour out my whole cup to fill yours up. You know what I mean? What's coming back to me?
I like that. I like that. That
But
makes a lot of
yeah,
sense.
It kind of boils back to the imagery that we see on TV, you guys. Like honestly, what woman do we have on television that we can look at that is actually serving a man nowadays? What woman can you think of that is actually that we can look at and say, oh, she serves her man, or she knows how to be submissive? Nobody. We have the Cardi B, we got the Meg the Stallions, we got all these people. What you gonna do for me? Type of women out here, and that is where it's coming from. I don't watch those people. Those people are not my idols. I don't look up to them because I know that they are tearing down the structure that was once, it was once there, but they're tearing it down. And I feel like that is the problem. We don't have anything to look up to. We don't have anyone to look up to.
Well, I feel like the
I definitely
whole
agree with that. Go ahead, Trey.
idea of women serving a man is highly unpopular now when you think of urban pop culture. It, and this is what I meant before when I said that I feel like too many people, too many men especially, when they buy into these ideas of what a man is supposed to be and what they're supposed to drive and what kind of woman they're supposed to have on their arm, when they buy into all these ideas that are perpetuated by urban pop culture, that destroys, you know, the relationships, that destroys, you know, functional and healthy ideas of what a relationship is supposed to be. No, people should be serving one another, adding to each other, lifting each other up, pouring into each other's cups so both of your cups are full and overflowing with
yeah,
love and support and respect and all of these things that are no longer popular. Now it is
right.
okay, well, it's popular to be twerking on TV. It's popular to be having guys doing for you. If you can't do for me, if you can't buy this for me, if you can't get this for me, don't get with a man who can't do this and can't do that. And the same thing with men feeling like, well, I need a woman who is going to pretty much, just do whatever I say. Oh, well, she knows she ain't the only one. Oh, she knows she got to do this for me. Or even worse is we have such a culture now of men who don't want to work and want to live off of a woman, multiple women now, and it's become popular to have multiple women taking care of all of your needs. Why should you don't have to work because you got one that will let you drive her car, another one that's paying for your phone, a one that's paying your other bills. You stay home and play video games or do nothing for anybody all day long, but she's paying the rent, she's taking care of everything. And it's like,
Can
okay,
I
And
rebuttal
why
that
is
real quick?
that?
Quick
yes.
rebuttal to that. Why does the woman put up with that?
Well,
Yes.
let me explain. I feel like that because we also have a culture of women who are feeling desperate, feeling like they're running out of time, feeling like the clock is ticking, who will accept
But wait,
anything, or we perpetuate these
we just
ideas that you need to have a man. So that having a man in your life is something that validates you. It makes you somehow a better woman, or makes you somehow more valuable
Be
because
let
you
her
got
rock because I got a good
a man.
response.
You
but
have a man
we
in your
just
life.
talked about how women are will leave the relationship faster. Well, if you
Right.
see this dude is dealing with multiple women and he's sitting around doing nothing, why are you? Why not? That's your cue to leave.
Well,
B, you want the
they
answer,
If,
don't
bro?
fall into that culture of
You want the
women who
answer?
think like that. Unfortunately,
I'm
you have a lot
I'm gonna
of
give you the
women
answer.
who fall into this idea that I need to have a man, and or this. You still have a generations of women who have that wounded bird syndrome. I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to dust him off, fix him up. All I need to do is love him enough, or oh, he's been through so much, and all he needs is some love and some support, and a woman to hold him down and get him together and help him and do this and that, because
In
it
some
plays off of
cases,
each other.
I
I
can
in
think.
some
say
cases, however, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Anjo. I'm gonna let you rock, and then I'll come in. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I consider that an insecure woman, to be honest with you.
Yes, yeah.
I sense some insecurity there with that woman because when you know your value and the value that you hold, you might take some crap for a little while, but you ain't gonna take it for too long before you wake up and realize that hey, this is crap and I need to move on.
Absolutely,
And
those
and and
women
and that's
are struggling with
and
feelings of low self worth and low self value. Absolutely.
that's where no, LaFonda, go ahead. And I'm gonna rock. 'Cause I don't want to cut the ladies off because the whole point is to let the women talk.
Oh no, I was saying that just by listening, it sounds like, that the woman is insecure with herself, because I'm trying to, as you guys are speaking, I'm trying to put myself in the position, looking from, my side of things. Would I actually do something like that? And it's no, that's not. I'm not going to be working and you're going to be sitting home playing video games, not doing anything with your life, especially the type of woman that I am. I'm very goal oriented and I like striving for things. And so for me to be with someone that is the total opposite and just laying around and just being lazy, yeah, that,
Yeah, I need
Well,
somebody better than me.
let me give you all this though. So this is what happens a lot of times, in my opinion, with women, right? So y'all don't plan out to do that per se, but what happens is that you slowly enter into those situations. So what happens is that the guy may be a little bit different in the beginning and slowly becomes the
That was
stay at
me.
home,
That was me.
right? Right?
Hmm.
mm.
What'd you say? What'd you say, Angel?
I lived that. I lived that story 2 times.
So you're saying it's there, but we just have to notice it.
They put on a good mask, but once you realize it's a mask, then that's when you got to get out of the circus.
Well,
Right.
it's
So
just like
are
peeling
there
back those
red
in
flags that
layers.
you ignored?
what'd you say, B?
Are there red flags that are ignored before we get to the circus? Like
Oh,
on the way into
absolutely,
the circus, when you see red flags, you're just
absolutely.
Whoa. But let me say this, B. Let me say this, B. So here's the thing that, and again, I tie these things back to we all make mistakes, but what do we tell
no.
the
'Cause
next
we do
generation?
it too. As men, we
I
do it too. We will see red flags and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm still gonna go.
100%.
Yeah, you explain
So
it
But
it
away.
happens.
what women do, women a lot of times, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just stating the fact. I think women, for times, they go for who they want versus who they need. And, if they can find the good combination of who they need and who they want, because I understand, I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to be disingenuous and say, hey, be with some weird, fat, geeky person that you're not attracted to. It's just not realistic. I get it, right? At the same time, the person that so B, and for example, for the men, when you flip it around, we understand sometimes when you get that the saucy fly got the perfect body type of woman and all that stuff from the physical aspect. All these things you may want physically, right? Are things that may be attractive physically.
Right.
That person might not be the best person to have a relationship with, right? So
Right.
like a Kim Kardashian, you know what I'm saying? Just
Right.
for an example, she may not be the best person to have a relationship with per se. I don't know her personally, but what I'm saying is that
That
she may
type
not be the best person, the
or
type,
that
because
image, because yeah,
she
okay,
her image, she's doing things that for the average man is probably not going to be comfortable in the confines of a relationship. That's
right.
why Kanye went batshit crazy. I mean, probably amongst other things,
No,
but
no,
that ain't the
don't
woman
put
you
that
wife
on
up.
her. He was already crazy.
No,
Mm-mm.
no, I'm
That's
not
the
putting it all on
Kardashian
her.
curse.
I'm not putting it all on her, but what I'm not putting it all on her. But what I'm saying is
Kardashian
that
curse, bro.
once you have a woman who, to me, I mean, if she's on a sex tape, I'm not gonna marry her. You know what I'm saying? I can't do it when the whole world has already seen it. I can't do it as a
Yeah.
man. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve a husband, but I'm saying it takes a different type of man
But here go
to
the thing.
know that the whole
To
world
that
saw
point,
that.
it's the type of dude you are because you just said you couldn't if she's on a sex tape, you're not gonna wife her. I feel the same way.
Yeah,
Kanye wifed her because of the sex tape.
right.
You see
And
what I'm
that's
saying? So that's
why,
the other type of
yes,
dude. He's
thank
gonna
you.
see it like, yo, that's what I want.
And that's why I parallel it to women, because Kim might be the girl that you're attracted to and you want to be with. Same way for a woman, you might see a man that is attractive that you want to be with, but what's going to come along with it end up getting these lumps. I don't mean physical lumps, but you end up getting these emotional lumps, these problems through life, and you end up paying. You know what I mean? And
So
or
Yeah, I
I have
get it.
physical.
a question. So besides his character, right? What would you consider to be red flags? Because I also believe that when two people are in a relationship, that both parties should encourage each other, kind of build each other up in a sense of like, okay, if he doesn't have what he has, at least encourage him to to grow. That's the word, to grow,
Right.
and vice versa.
Can I
So
say something
what
about
would
that?
be
No,
Well,
when you're done,
yeah,
I didn't mean
everybody
to
can
cut
talk.
you off.
Everybody can go around and talk about the red flags.
yeah, what would you consider to be the red flags besides his character? Because okay, he has a nice character, but other than that, as far as his growth is concerned, what, like, how would you determine would be the red flags?
You're asking who?
Well,
Um,
Oh,
well,
anybody. Just
everybody
okay.
everybody can go. Everybody can go around and talk about the red flags.
Can I
So,
do this
yeah.
real quick? Real quick, I'll just I'll talk. I think that is dependent on the individual. What can I tolerate? What is not going to work for me? And if I see that this person, and I'll just give you a very very general, very easy one, right? I don't want someone who smokes cigarettes. I see cigarettes, that's not
That's
for me. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to make your own list of what you will be willing to deal with, what you can put up with, and everybody's not perfect. There's going to be character flaws in everybody. How many of those flaws can I tolerate, and how many are just like that's not
she
for
can't
me at
smoke
all?
some squares, B. You
No,
ain't gonna
I'm
square with
not
her.
doing. You can smoke a J every now and again, but you can
She
smoke.
can't
Listen,
smoke a Lucy with you.
squares just don't work. I'm just saying that's just me. It's just me. But what I'm saying is that you have to have your own individual list of what you are willing to deal with and what you're not. And I think a lot of people are quick to Angel's point, they jump right to the sex part before even getting to know that person. So now before you even see those things that you don't necessarily like, you already have a bond. You already fucking, you know what I mean? There's a soul tie already there. And then you figure out, hey, I don't even like this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And by that point, you're already in. So slowing down, getting to know the people that you potentially may deal with helps on both sides. Because I know some men who
Absolutely.
didn't decided they just wanted to smash and ended up in, in
In
years
family court.
long relationships with somebody they don't even like. So it
Right.
happens on both sides.
Absolutely. I absolutely
So
agree
you
with
know
that.
that
what,
so
and I'm sorry,
Oh, no, no. I'm
I
just
want to say
agreeing
this
with you.
one thing. I just want to say this one thing. Now, from a biblical standpoint,
Oh
Uh-oh.
Lord.
Bring it.
Oh
now
Lord.
you have a relationship with God. I will always say that the Lord will reveal. He will reveal the red flag. So, um, yeah, I definitely agree with what B Rock said about the characteristics and like, if you say, okay, I don't want a man that smokes or a man that drinks, those things, God will reveal those,
Yeah. And that's
He will
just surface
definitely reveal
level.
those
But I'm
things.
talking about there's deeper things you might want in a person, but it's taking the time to get to know that person to reveal those deeper things. Because we're only going to give you the mask until we get what we want. And
Right.
then
Right.
the true comes, the mask comes off. Now you got real me. And I'm here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And at that point, you're probably, now you're here. You know what I mean? And now we have a situation. So
Mm-hmm.
being
That
patient and slowing down goes a long way because at some point, if I'm not getting what I want, and I'm not saying me, but I'm saying in general, men, that you're gonna see the real person eventually. They can't keep that mask up forever.
Right.
Right, right, right.
You know what I mean?
And it's
And
typically
so
it
by the
becomes
time
how
you
much can you tolerate, and then hmm?
I would say typically by the time
No,
you
it's not
peel
good.
back the layers of that onion, you're like you said, there's a soul tie already. There's a bond that's already been built, and that bond's been built on something shallow. So typically the relationship's not going to work because now, you know, man, you dug yourself in with this person, and now you look over and realize, dang, you know, I don't even like you. I don't even like you as a person. But
Right?
boom, now we got
How do you
kids
like it?
together. Now
Yeah,
we're dealing with family
yeah.
court, or now we're dealing with this. So now you're trying to make something dysfunctional work because you have other external reasons to make it work. And now you end up stuck in this relationship because you feel like, man, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, this wasn't what I wanted, but maybe I can make this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
okay.
What
I
What
was
you say,
said, now
Chantel?
how did she know my life, Gaga? How did you know my life?
Because I lived it too. Because I lived that same story too. By the time you think that this is the person, this is the one, and then as you start peeling back each layer of that onion, you start getting to the core of that person. But you move so fast because, yes, you move so fast. Because you thought this was the one, your person, your it, that's all. And then once you dug in and the mask fell off, well, you pregnant now. Well, we gonna make this work. You gonna make him be. Yes, you gonna make him be the person that he said he was gonna be. You gonna make him live up to everything that he said. All you have to do is just demand enough, or love enough, or whatever it is
Well,
enough to make
but
that person be who you want them to be, or who they said that they were gonna be. But in reality, they can
No, you
never
said
be
it
that
right.
well,
It's
person
who you want them to be. You're
who you
right.
want
right,
them
who
to
you
be.
You
want
said it
them to
right.
Well,
be.
but
Let me
also
Because
who.
y'all,
let me
women
let me
will tend to make that dude up in their head, and then he'll say something like, "Well, what do you like in a guy?" You're gonna give him the whole playbook, and now I'm gonna become that guy. You know what I
But they
mean?
and
also
Like,
will
wait,
make promises to you
let me say,
about who
oh, go
they
ahead, go ahead.
said that they are. And that's a lot of times who
Well,
you fall in love with. You fall in love with the mask, who they told you they were, who they portrayed themselves to be. And then when that mask falls off and you realize, well, he's not that guy. That's not really who he is. You want him to put the mask back on and be that person that he said that he was. But in reality, he can't
but
because he was
that
never that person in the first place.
exactly,
That's why
exactly.
for me, I just be like, just go, get out of here.
but
Like, I,
wait, but that's why
Just go
Just
ahead
go.
on, huh? Just
but
go.
that's why I always say that when it comes to women, that's why judgment is so important, and that's what I'm saying. B is exactly right because see, let's go back to when we first become like 11 and 12 or whenever we first start liking the opposite sex, right? Puberty. So in that realm, early on, we all know that for the most part, the guy, you might have one or two very popular guys that all the girls like, but generally the guys are trying to approach the women. The women have all the power base in the younger years, let's be honest. And the women kind of approach, I mean, excuse me, the men kind of approach the girls and they kind of see who they can get, who's going to give them some rhythm. Without the women giving rhythm, that dynamic don't even start from the beginning. It's dead. So, you know what I'm saying? So what happens early on is that guys, boys, not guys, but boys are trying to gauge what do girls like.
Mm-hmm.
And early
Mm.
on, what happens is that boys, and I'm speaking as a man who was once a boy, right? So, and B can tell me if he disagrees. I'm sure he agrees. So when we were kids, we first start to look at how do girls interact. And what happens is that boys look and say, okay, girls like this. Girls like maybe some of the flyer clothes. Girls like, when we get to the car stage, girls like somebody who's driving. Girls like somebody who's doing this. Girls are attracted to status, and there's nothing wrong with it. Girls are attracted to status and things, and women are typically that as you get older. So what happens is that men, if they choose to be very dishonest, they start to say, you know what? Let me go ahead and model myself or present myself a certain way to get this person. And that's what a lot of men end up doing because they end up being socialized to think that I need to present myself this certain way to get this girl. I can't
Yep.
just go up to her and just be me because she ain't gonna be interested in me. The whole female dynamic from a young point is like, why the girl is like, well, why am I entertaining you? What reason am I entertaining you? Either I think you're very attractive, and that's only one portion of it. But outside of that, it's got to be okay. You might be a good ball player, or you might, like I said, you might dress well, you might be popular, whatever it is. All these dynamics, I'm not saying it's wrong, but what I'm saying is that when you look at when we grow up, men aren't typically with women who they're trying to change. Now, I'm not saying I haven't had friends and people I've known who've been with women that they're trying to change, but typically that dynamic of women trying to change men, the reason why that happens, in my opinion, is that you know women don't know how to judge the men that come into their lives properly early on. So men are always going to be fronting a little bit 9 times out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Um, And again, I'm not saying it's across the board and all the time. It's not an absolute. But men are always going to present themselves maybe some type of way, especially when they're younger and immature. But the question is, it's so important to me, like I said, for the girls, for women, who are you entertaining and what do you really want? What type of relationship you really want? You got to ask yourself that as you're interfacing with boys and men, what relationship you really want, what type of guy you really want. And again, I understand girls also are growing. Now, I'm gonna say this because I know I'm talking a lot, but one of the things is that for girls, we got to stop this notion about girls mature faster than boys. We have to stop that. And the reason why I say that, I would say kids mature. Some girls mature fast. I know. Everybody looking at me crazy. I get it. But I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Girls do mature faster than boys in one construct or one context when it comes to not playing games and doing this and that. But the problem with that statement is I find that we end up missing out on the immaturity of girls. We assume girls are mature and we totally miss the boat on their immaturity because we end up assuming that, oh, they're mature and boys are not mature. So the immaturity that we miss out on girls is their lack of judgment, the lack of emotional maturity to judge well on who they entertain. That's why we have girls. I knew girls in high school who were pretty, straight A's, good students, and they was who they was dating. The most reckless dudes that could possibly get them shot up. You understand? Or the most reckless dudes that were soon to be the guys that had multiple baby mamas. So that mismatch has happened. And why does that happen? You know what I'm saying? So there's a level of immaturity there. So that's my spiel. I'm going to be quiet.
Women want excitement, you know.
There you go.
Excitement comes with that entertainment, you know, and I feel like, you know, we just need to bring it really back sometimes, to be honest. But I know exactly what you're talking about. It is the smartest girl is always the one that picks the one that just has no good intentions for her life, you know, and it's really, really sad. I agree.
Well, you know what? Keep your mic unmuted for 1 second. I want to see if there's still an echo. Let me see. Yeah, there's still an echo. Never mind. um, no, I love that because it's honest, and I think that nuance and that dynamic is interesting because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Girls don't want to be bored. There's no doubt about it. Um, and that's why men are in when they're early years, they're tap dancing and they're doing whatever they can to get the girl's attention. That's just the
Right.
dynamic of men and women. However, it can get too crazy when when a woman becomes a woman and can't decipher boredom from drama and trouble and problems. So, so we have to make sure we don't, you know what I'm saying? We don't mismatch the two. So, a life that's peaceful, logical, um, life is not always going to be a dopamine hit every minute, right?
Right.
But, and I'm not talking about y'all in particular. I'm just talking about the dynamic of women.
But honestly, I don't know any women like that leave relationships because they're
What?
bored. I knew women like that when I was maybe in my 20s and 30s, but as I've gotten older and I mean, none of my friends are like that. And any women that I surround myself with, they are not like that. Especially now, over 40, you're not getting with a guy because he's going to be tap dancing and putting on a minstrel show to keep you excited. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Uh,
You'd be
No.
surprised.
I guarantee you,
I wouldn't
You'd be
necessarily say
surprised.
that. I wouldn't.
Wait. Everybody got something to say.
I'm sorry. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's considered what you're talking about is boredom. I think some women are just can be you know those type of women and men too where they get in a relationship, the relationship ends, and then they just jump into another relationship like
yeah.
just a month later, and then
Mhm.
after that relationship is over they just go straight into another relationship. So I wouldn't say that it's you're not talking about like when you say bored, are you talking about that in that sense
Well,
or
that's exactly it. You actually
You
touching on it
actually
because what
touching
I'm
on it.
saying is
Attention,
that
wanting attention,
attention.
That's the
all
thing
yeah,
with that person who can't be alone. I don't trust people who can't be
Right.
alone.
yes, that can be
Can't be
alone,
alone.
yes.
once that relationship gets to that plateau, it drops back down to a certain level where it's not fun anymore for some women. Like I feel
Hmm.
like we want to be taken out, we want to keep that fresh feel, and once that fresh feeling is gone, we move to the next. Not we as in me, but we as in women. It's a lot of
The
women out here
pro-
that definitely do that.
the
Mm-hmm.
problem with that though is that ev- that honeymoon phase is never going to last forever. And if you keep seeking that,
Hmm.
you're never going to be content in the relationship you're in because it's going to start out at a certain point. And at some point, yeah, real life is going to hit. But to run away from that, you'll be running forever. You know what I
Right.
mean? You because you're always seeking, like Sue said, that dopamine hit. You want that honeymoon. You want that honeymoon phase where everything's brand new in the beginning. It's always gonna be great in the beginning. That's why it's the beginning. You know what I mean? Like,
And
but
right.
I mean, that's what I'm
that
saying. I
movie
don't
has
know.
a middle that you got to get to.
To me, I feel like that speaks to a
Look,
maturity level, though. I mean, I feel like as you get older
yeah,
and as you start to evolve and mature and gain wisdom and self awareness, your choices for types of men would also change, and what you really need in a relationship. Hopefully, by the time you reach this age, you have
You
learned
would think
enough
so.
about yourself to understand what you
Right.
need and have come to terms with the realities of a relationship, the highs, the lows, the lulls, and all these periods. If you're always chasing this high of a relationship, that you can't be in the relationship after you have gotten off cloud nine, then there is some functional issue within yourself that you need to work on. And you need to ask yourself,
and
why can't you be in a relationship after the cloud nine ends and you cannot be alone? There's some other issue there that's happened in your development that's made you
yeah,
unable
Yes,
to be
and that
alone.
person who's chasing that, who's
Mhm.
going from relationship to relationship, they'll never learn about themselves because they
No,
can't be alone. They can't
they
they
can't be
can't spend
alone.
enough time with themselves
Hmm.
to figure out who they are. So they're
And
just
that
chasing that next hit.
And they have some
So
that
dysfunctional
yeah,
ideas about what a
right there to me
relationship
is
even is.
actually, well,
I feel
that
like
right
those
there,
kind of
right
women
there.
definitely have daddy issues. To be honest with you, most of those kind of women, they have daddy issues. Either the dad was absent in their home, or
Yes, yes.
they have had situations where they have some type of disdain on that other side. That's what causes it to me. That's my personal opinion.
No, that makes perfect sense, and I think that that's why you see that a lot. I feel like amongst the ladies is that you have a situation where there, I call it chronic discontent, right? So they're chronically discontent with life for whatever reason, and what happens is that whatever man they're with. Now, I'm not saying the man doesn't contribute to it. He may or may not. But what I'm saying is that they end up in a relationship, and their relationship is always the reason why they're not content with life, and they always feel like okay, and get reeling back to what we were talking about from the beginning, that you know the dynamics have changed. Women are not beholden to men financially, right? So most women can do whatever they want and kind of make new decisions and bounce out if they want to bounce out and still be able to survive. A lot of women, and because of that, there's an empowerment that women feel like I'm just gonna leave the relationship. I'm just gonna leave because there's this whole aura like, well, I'm gonna move on. I'll find somebody else, or I want to travel, and I want to go around the world and be free, and blah, 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 and all this whole rhetoric about freedom. And freedom is very subjective, right? It's subjective. What do you say? Yeah, yeah, yes. Thank you. We were talking about a couple weeks ago. We were talking about pop culture songs. That independent women, bills, irreplaceable.
hey,
These
hey, hey,
And all of
real
that,
quick,
and she's
real quick.
all of that, and she's married.
Let me say this. Let me say this. I said Beyonce last time, right? I actually went back and listened to was it Independent Women? She actually said some stuff in there that was the other way, bro. Like go listen to the
okay.
lyrics again.
Well,
And
you're right. I'll give you on independent woman. I'm not thinking about that so much, but you're right. Irreplaceable is a good one, and bills.
but you know what though?
But she has all those songs, but she's
She's married.
married.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. Here's the
And
thing.
that
Here's the
goes
thing.
back to what
But wait. Let me get this off real quick. Let me get this off real quick because I want to stay on this Beyonce thing real quick.
Mhm.
She has all those songs and she's married, and those songs hit a certain audience. She also made "Cater to You." You feel me?
True.
And
True. Okay.
that hit, but it went over them same women's heads because they didn't want to hear that part.
Now
They
you
wanted to
ain't hear that.
hear the other part. You know what I'm saying? So she
Right.
did. To be fair to her, and I'm not beehive at all. I promise you. But to be fair to her, as I thought about it, she did both sides. You know what I mean? Like she's
Right.
given both ends of the spectrum. People just flock to that end because it relates to
That's
what
what
they're dealing
resonates,
with in their
though.
lives.
That's what resonates.
yeah,
Yep.
but it's still she's still being an influence to whoever. So it's still not a the fact that she's married. It's like okay, you're married and you're singing these songs. Like,
Yep.
what are you putting into these people's minds?
Yep.
Well,
You know?
people like you said, like what y'all said. The thing is that what resonates is irreplaceable, and what happens is that what I was saying
Written
before
by a
is
man, by the
basically,
way.
huh?
Written by a man, by the way.
Written by, right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one other story. But what I was saying is before is that whole idea that constant, that's what social media has done to me. It's told women and even men to an extent, but it's told women that your discontent is gonna be solved by some person. And you know what? If you in some relationship and you ain't happy, girl, you gotta leave. And again, if you getting your ass beat and it's serious, there's certain times to leave. But we haven't defined when you should leave and maybe when you should know how to work
Work
on
it
what
out.
you do have.
But a
Because
lot of women are single because of other women.
Well,
Because of
and
bad advice from other women.
that is the reason why I feel like and one part of knowing good relationships is having good friendships and surrounding yourself with people that are positive and that have successful relationships,
Yeah.
successful jobs, success that just have success in their life. If you're listening to relationship
Right.
advice or job advice or whatever kind of advice from people who don't have it together, unless they're cautioning you about something, don't take advice from people who are not doing whatever it is that you want. If you want a successful relationship, don't take advice from somebody who's miserable and unhappy. And just like I'm not going to take
That's the
financial
problem,
Yeah.
advice
though.
from somebody
That's
who's
I totally
broken,
agree with that.
busted.
And I always
yeah.
I always say, like, and this is just my opinion, like, I don't agree, I don't believe that married people should take advice from a single person. Or, I believe that a single person could take advice from someone that's married, like in terms of, being married. But yeah, as far as like
Yeah, I don't
people that
always
are
agree
With
with
the
married,
that. I
caveat,
hear you, but
I
with the
don't agree
grain of
with that. I don't.
well, I believe that
I don't
single
know
people
because
should take advice
I don't
from
think
happily
so.
married people. Because I've heard some advice from married people who I can clearly see their
That's true.
relationship is dysfunctional as hell. And it's like, yeah, I don't want no advice from you because I don't
and
want that type of
and
relationship.
But it's
to be
still
fair, there are single
but it's
people who are
still
in
good
relationships who
because
just don't want to get married, and they have
but
long sustaining relationships. So those,
But
and so
even if their relationship is dysfunctional, at least they could give the advice that, okay, my marriage is dysfunctional.
nah,
Maybe
because here's
you
the
should
thing.
try
Here's what the thing,
looking
Yeah,
this
but
Laquan.
how,
way.
If
how
I'm
are
in a
you
It's
going to
not.
give
relationship, if
somebody,
I'm in a long term relationship, right? Hear me out. Hear me out. If I'm in a long term relationship and my partner doesn't, we just don't want to do the marriage. We don't want to do it on paper. We just want to. We're happy as hell, right? We everything is perfect. The only thing missing is the marriage certificate. If I'm in that, that doesn't give me less credence and less knowledge about how to be in a relationship than somebody who actually had the ceremony and they hate their spouse. You know what I mean? Like that person it should not. That's a situation they shouldn't be in. You know what I mean? Like
right,
so it's not so much about the marriage. It's about what is that relationship like.
right, right.
You
Yeah,
know,
but even listening to that, I still believe that, okay, if their relationship is dysfunctional, at least the person that's receiving the advice, they know, okay, I cannot, to not be in that kind of marriage or that kind of
Well, right.
relationship. So
If
Looking at
that's
it
they're
how
like
I
if
look
they're
that.
if
at
they're
it.
giving
Right
if
now,
they're
Yeah.
if
cautioning
it's
you,
now
yeah.
if the advice comes to you like that, then that's good because
yeah,
sometimes one of y'all was saying that because sometimes a very especially we're talking about women, an unhappily married woman could sometimes give you really bad advice and dissuade you from even wanting to be married because they'll just be
based
like,
upon her
"Girl,
own situation,
it ain't
right?
all it's supposed to be," and I wish I had my freedom, and I wished I missed the days when I could do whatever I wanted, and da da
Girl,
da. Da.
never
And
get married because this is not the yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Based on her
exactly.
own personal situation, she has now swaying you to not do what may be intended for you.
Right.
You may have a small little discrepancy with your man, and you're seeking, advice. And this person who is having has a big discrepancy with hers is like, don't ever do it. Don't ever get married. You know
Don't
what I
ever
mean?
do it. Right.
And it's trying to sway you into that mentality because it's not working for her.
It's a,
Now
Hmm.
I did see that. I'm sorry,
oh no,
guys.
no, go ahead.
I did see that what you guys are talking about. There was a show I was watching. I forgot the name of the show, but to make a long story short, um these people, it was called it's called Love is Blind. So
Mm-hmm,
basically
Oh yeah,
they
I've heard of
you
that.
you got you seen it, they're like in two different rooms or whatever,
Right.
and they're just going based off of their emotional connection.
mm-hmm,
They finally propose. The guy proposes to the woman. He has not seen her physically. Then he finally sees her, and then they get married. So I seen an episode where this woman, she had her mom came in to meet the guy that she was gonna marry, and so she was giving her all this bad advice. Oh, your dad and the guy that I was with before, men are not good, and so since my relationship did not work, my marriages did not work, your marriage is not gonna work. And so it was kind of discouraging the guy from actually wanting to go forth in the marriage. But at the end, it was nice to see that they did come together and get married. So it was nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to what you guys said, yeah, that's what I see. I seen that as far as like another woman discouraging,
That's
another
horrible.
person from getting,
To
yeah.
me, it just goes right back down to who you surround yourself with, what kind of relationships they're in. If you have friends who are, or you're just surrounded by women who are angry or bitter and unhappy in general with themselves, with life, with relationships, honestly, I really don't think you should take too much advice from them at all. I mean, if they're cautioning you, okay, fine. I understand that sort of advice in a cautionary tale about something bad. But people who are just in general negative, bitter, have just a discouraged outlook about life, about relationships. I wouldn't take advice
Hmm.
from them about anything because you're not living the type of life that I want to have. You don't have the type of attitude that I want to surround myself. I like to be around people who are happy and have some energy, have a positive outlook on life, have some self-awareness, some wisdom, some maturity. And if that's not who you are, then what can you add to the relationship? What can I even add to you? Because people like that, they're not even able to receive anything good that you're talking about because they are just they thrive in that negativity. And it's like,
Right.
if you have, even whether you're married or not, you could have been married. I know people who have been married for 20 plus years. Their relationship is dysfunctional. I know at the core that they're not very happy. But yet sometimes they try to give advice about life and about marriage and what other people should do and how to have a happy marriage. And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, you don't have a happy marriage. So I don't want what you
Right.
have.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
want a relationship like what you have because what you have, you've learned to be content with it. You've learned to accept certain things that I would not accept, that would not work for me, that I don't think is functional or even normal. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be taking any advice from you. I think you have to be real selective about who you listen to and receive from.
And when too, because a long-term relationship will have peaks and valleys. You're gonna have moments where you just don't like this person, but if you're in it
Right.
and
Hmm.
you're that's your partner, you're gonna work through that.
Right.
So you may catch this person at a point where things just ain't happy. You know what I mean? Because it ain't
Hmm.
always gonna be butterflies and rainbows.
Absolutely.
Um, but you might catch that person in that moment, and you know what I mean? You might what they tell you at that point may not be what they tell you 3 months from now with that same question because
That's a
their
great point.
dynamic is different. So it's being your own filter on who is giving you advice, what advice you're taking, when you're all that matters if you're asking for other people for advice. But a lot of people nowadays will simply go online and post whatever discrepancy they have. Right, their Facebook becomes their advice column. You know what I'm saying?
That's always the worst
Their,
thing to do
their
in the world.
Instagram it
The
becomes
worst
so.
I
place to
think
get
that's going to
advice.
be a whole nother
You,
podcast if you want to start talking about social media. That's going to be a
I'm
whole
Yeah.
just
nother podcast.
Yeah. We'll do another
like
podcast about that
Like
because
they take,
good
but I'm saying
Lord.
they take advice from like you'll get people under your post like, girl, he ain't like you don't even. I ain't talked to you in 17 years. How are you talking my man ain't shit? You know what I'm
But
saying?
as soon as
You
you
don't even
post something
like a
negative,
post.
as soon as you
You,
post
you,
something
you
negative, man, you will get a comments under there. If a woman
Oh,
posts something negative about her man or our man, them comments will fly under there so quick, like
girl, they ain't
lie
shit.
so
Fuck
quick,
him. You
I
don't need
tell
him.
you.
quick.
Like you don't know
Mm-mm.
who this woman is. Like yes, she does. She's on his insurance.
Cause she wants to get off. The commenters want to get off their own grief and their
It
own
right.
strife, and
They
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 don't even
put their
care.
own
They don't
trauma
even
into
care
those
about what you're
comments.
posting
Right.
about.
Yes.
Well, of course
Put
you're
their own
always
Yep.
gonna
experiences
attract.
in the
Like they say,
comments.
misery loves company. So you're gonna attract
Of course,
all the flies.
And that's the thing. Misery definitely loves company. Yep.
you know.
So
But so the other thing, so as far as the gender issues, so I played last week, and B, you know what I'm talking about. I played that video. There's I'm not gonna share it in this one. It's a waste of time to watch it, but there
okay.
was like this Mocha single moms or something, and there's a whole movement of just a group of women who are older and are focused on you know, uh, having a sperm donor, to basically on purpose have children purposely without having to deal with the father. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like okay, well, yeah, it is basically like
Yaya's
yeah, like I
face.
I don't have I don't have a man, but it's not here's the thing. I'm trying to describe it. It's not even so much that I can't find a man. And I'm gonna go
I
ahead and
don't
do
want
this.
the father to be to be
Yes,
involved with raising the child.
it's purposeful.
So
It's
I'm
purposeful.
purposely being a single mom
Yes, I
Well,
don't
to
want to deal with the father. And
I want
what
to
do y'all
hear
think about
Yaya
that?
so bad because her face is saying a lot.
okay. So
Like,
full
you know
disclosure,
what I mean?
I thought about that a long time ago about possibly going to a sperm bank because when you get tired of being, especially after you've been in an unsuccessful relationship, you've been with somebody that done pissed you off, things didn't work out the way that they promised things would work out, and you're starting to get older, for one. The biological clock is ticking. You start thinking about your options, and you start, if you're, depending on what your mindset is at that time, you think, I don't want to deal with no fool, and I don't want to deal with this bullshit. It'd probably just be better for me to, go to a sperm bank so at least I can have a family. If I'm gonna be alone, at least I want kids, but I can have kids and I don't have to deal with any of the bullshit, right? Honestly, for me, I thought about it. I kind of looked it up. What kind of threw me off was like the sperm costs too much. I figured why pay that much when I can get it for free and I could.
and actually enjoy it.
I'm, I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. I was like,
I
there's a
appreciate the
lot of guys.
disclosure.
Full disclosure. I'm just being honest. I'm like, damn, why should I pay that much when there's a lot of guys out there who will have a baby and then they'll just and dip off and won't have nothing to do with it. I thought, why should I pay that much when I can get some free sperm out there and then just not deal with the guy anymore? So, but then I came to my senses because I mean, deep down, I wanted a family. I wanted the marriage. I wanted the whole nuclear whole family thing. So I didn't go with the whole sperm bank thing.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say that I understand if it's from a perspective of where you haven't been able to find a successful relationship, you're tired, you're stressed out, you're kind of worn out with dating, and the biological clock is ticking, and you just feel like you're running out of time and options. I can see why some women would decide to go to a sperm bank and do that. Now, if you haven't given a relationship a chance, or maybe if the reality is you just don't want a relationship, then I mean, I guess that's your choice. It's your body. If you decide that you want to have a baby by yourself because you simply do not want marriage, do not want a relationship, then I guess that's your choice to do so.
But let me ask this, because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a relationship. But I mean, having a child and purposely, I'm not saying because of anything that happened between a mom and the dad, to where that person should not be in that child's life, but to purposely have the child with the intention of, I don't want the father involved at all.
I think
Is that not doing a bit of a disservice to the
it.
child
I feel
in
like
that
it
scenario?
is.
Because that kid's going to go up with, you know what I'm saying? So,
Well, I feel like I guess because speaking from a whole different perspective now as a single mother, an unintentional single mother, I'll say. I would say that I guess it is a bit of a disservice to the child. Um, if you have the opportunity to have a good mate and a good person to be in their lives, you should always take that opportunity because children do deserve two good parents that love them and are there for them and can sow into them if even if they're not together. And I wish that was my circumstance, but
right.
unfortunately it is not. And from that perspective, I would not choose to have a child solely on my own and say no, you're not going to be, you have no father. I don't want you to have a father in your life because I feel like there are consequences to that, and children have to deal with that. I really don't know how you would explain to a child, okay, uh, your dad is a number. I don't even know if there's a name
Right,
associated with it. I
Right.
don't know
right.
how that even works.
Right.
But
Um,
I just see it from the
I don't know.
standpoint of just personal experience. With my daughters, like I saw how not so much me and her mom's situation went, but the after effects. I saw how that affected my daughter. You know what I mean? In the sense that when it was like two households and you have to transport back and forth and you have to kind of coordinate the hours, and the hours, the person who suffered the most was the kid when we was trying to figure out everything else on how to navigate these waters. So that's just us unpacking, just going into co-parenting. So when somebody goes into the situation saying, "Hey, I don't even need that other person at all," there has to be. I think you're robbing that kid of their lineage. You know what I mean? Like that's something that they will never know about
Right.
themselves
Yeah.
when you
Right.
take that away from them, and
Right.
willingly, purposely. I mean, sometimes you just have to. Sometimes that person, the other party, doesn't need to be around them kids at all. And that's a different
Right.
situation. But when you purposely go into it and say, hey, you know what? I don't need this male at all. I'm just going to be it by myself. You're taking away from what that kid should grow up with. And
Well,
it's going to shape how they would then see it.
I think they're also
So
buying
now we go into the next
into.
generation because
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think they're also buying into this false idea of this idealized version of how things are going to be because they haven't lived the reality yet. Once they
Right.
have that baby and they're completely by
Yes.
themselves, and kids start asking questions, kids start acting a fool, or kids get sick, and then when the
yep,
reality starts
Right.
setting in. Okay, well, I don't know where your dad is. I don't know what their family heritage is. I don't know what's
I don't know
done
who
on
your
that
dad
side of the
is.
I don't even
family.
know who your
Right,
dad is.
I
Right.
don't know who that is.
Yeah,
Then I
Right.
think once the reality of there is no father on that side, I think they might think twice about that. But it's easy to romanticize anything. Anything can sound great in theory, but once it happens, I feel like it's a whole nother thing.
Right.
And like I said, as an unintentional single mom, I can say that I wish that their father was able to be a functional person in their life and be able to sow into them and pour into them. And maybe at some point, perhaps he could, but I don't know. I don't know. Because doing it by yourself is not
yeah, no,
easy.
I get it.
Well, at least here's the thing though. At least you tried. At least you tried, and that was the intention. And Angel, I'm sorry, you
Right.
just came back in. I played a video last podcast. I'm not gonna play it this time, but there's like this group called Mocha Moms. Um oh, you gotta try. Okay. Yeah. There's like this thing called Mocha Moms, and basically it's something called Mocha Single Moms, whatever. It's basically this group of women, black women, who decided that, you know what, we're gonna go ahead. We want to have children, but we intentionally don't want to have to deal with the dad, right? So they basically go to the sperm bank, or whatever it is, and they get their children. But it's a whole like support group, and it's the purpose is to have the children, and not have to have the dad, not have to deal with it.
Yeah,
And
they're
the
basically
woman who was
choosing. They're single moms by choice.
by choice.
It's not God's opinion. I feel like in the Bible, the Bible talks about the gift of being single as well as having someone as well. So I think that we put too much pressure into having children. Not every woman, I feel, is put on this earth to procreate. And the Bible even talks about that. I just feel like when you are forcing children or forcing a relationship just for the sake of having children, I feel that you are interfering with the purpose for your life, so to speak. And I feel like that's when people really need to get into the Word and read, because not everyone here on this earth is meant to be a mother, and it's not a slap to that person at all, and it's not a diss. It's just I feel like God has he puts motherhood in the wombs of those who he chooses. It's his call. It's your calling through God, and I just personally feel like when women are forcing having kids, it's not good spiritually. It's not good for the child. It's definitely a disservice. I definitely heard that being spoken about being a disservice to the child. I just don't think it's God's purpose.
No, that makes perfect sense. So if I understand you right, Angel, you're saying basically that these women, excuse me, they're not only making a conscious choice to not have the man in their life, but they also may be just forcing the concept of having a child because they feel like that's part of my journey. I want that, but I'm forcing it, and maybe that isn't something that they need to do. And I tend to agree with that. I tend to agree that, and again, I know that that would make some women mad who feel like, you know what, it is in my destiny to have children, but I ain't got to have them in the construct of having a father around or even having the father be known at all. I can just be a mom, and that's what I want. I want to be a mom, and I don't need to the I don't need to have a father or a man possibly involved at all in this situation. I can, and we were saying last week when we played the video, I was like, these women are thinking of children like pets. Children aren't pets. It's not like you go get a pet and you're like, oh, I really want a dog and I'm gonna raise it up. It's not the same thing. When you go get a dog, you don't know who the hell the dog's father is. You don't care. Your goal is to raise that pet, and that pet's gonna be around you. But
Mm-hmm.
the dog's lineage, what the hell do you care what the dog's lineage is? You just have a pet, you know? And I think that our society, we've gotten to a point with men and women where it's become like, what do you say?
I think it's wanting to own something, to have something to own,
Yes.
to hone in on, to whatever it is. I think
Right.
it's more so of I want to own something, and when it's just you and you don't have any children, you may not have someone that you can go home to. It hits hard, and I just want for those women to understand that the Bible talks about that, and God clearly says in the Word, not trying to take y'all to church, but there's women out here that He has put on this earth to be who they are, to live in their purpose, all by themselves, and it's okay. It's not a terrible thing. It's okay, and I feel like once people start to really hone in on these things, I think it'll change the mentality of women because we are not all put on this earth. Yes, we all have a womb, we all have a uterus, yeah, we all have eggs, but we're not all put on this earth to be a mother, and that's just my personal opinion. And me as a mom, it's not me talking to someone without a child, looking down upon them. I'm just saying what it says in the Word. It's just clear and evident. And then when you force it, you end up having kids, and I feel like the forcing causes the parenting to be off because then you start to pick up on these qualities in the child that it's not you. It's the other side that you have no idea where it came from.
If you don't know how to
And
navigate, yeah.
Absolutely. And also you will be out of the will of God. And when you're out of the will of God, things are gonna be harder than what it should be. Yeah.
that is absolutely right, LaFonda. You're out of the will. You're out of your own purpose that you were put on this earth to do. You don't force anything. You have to be able to get in touch, tap into that divine, and let that lead you. Because I mean, there's so many women out here. It's the standard to have children, but it really isn't. It's not according to God. And once women start to hone in on that, I feel like we'll do better. We'll do better.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's very, very,
But I
very.
don't mean to wrap this up, you guys. I got tissue I gotta bring into the house. I don't mean to drop out on you guys,
No,
but
no, it's
I
all
had
good.
I did the same thing. I went to go get some tea.
Great, great topic. And I think that so I guess the question is how do we everybody on the panel has kids, obviously, besides LaFonda, but when you have kids or if you have kids, or if you're talking to any younger people or anybody that you preach to, obviously as an evangelist, the question is, how do we solve this? Because I honestly believe I'm a little worried about what I see in culture on the internet. I'm worried about the idea of men and women not needing each other. I was worried when I saw that whole Mocha Moms thing. I'm like, yo, how do we stop women from getting even to that point, into those type of groups? You know what I'm saying? Because if we get to a point where we don't need each other and we start thinking like that, I don't want my daughter thinking like that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
I absolutely agree with you on that. Like, and that's why, like, not to get personal, that's why right now I don't personally have kids because I said, okay, if I'm to have kids, I want to be married. I want to have a family, and this
Hmm.
is something that I seen growing up. My mom and my father were married. My father, he passed away when I was at a young age, but I still got a chance to know and to see, the marriage. And so I believe that a man needs a woman and a woman needs a man. And I believe that um God made woman for man. So yeah, it is a bit worrisome to see how the world is becoming in that sense. So I know for me, that's why I don't have kids at the moment. Like a lot of people that I know, they just all sorts of things that has happened in life, and that's why they have kids.
Yeah,
Some people are married, some people are not married, and different situations have happened. But for me personally, I've always said, okay, I'm not having any kids until I'm married. Um, yeah, I don't want to be a single. I don't want that. I
yeah.
don't want that.
At least you want to try
So
to avoid that.
I want to,
Well,
yeah.
and oh, B, I thought you were frozen. You,
No, I'm saying.
you, you I was looking at y'all like I said, I gotta see if he's frozen because you held that pose for a long time.
Yeah, I was,
How the hell you do that? You
I was chilling. I'm listening.
you didn't
He's
even look
like a
like you were
mannequin.
breathing.
I'm
He's like a
soaking it in.
mannequin.
I swear to God, you weren't moving. I said, damn, B's camera's frozen. Uh, but so what do you think, B? Yeah, what do you think? How do we solve it for the next people? Because, like we said, this whole disdain is real. How do we solve it for the next generation? That's what I want to know.
I don't have that answer. I feel like this generation, and I mean our generation, not the younger ones, before we start trying to help them, we probably need therapy. All of us, because everybody got some stuff to unpack. And that will probably help us not put the wrong information into these children's heads and talk to them from a
Mm,
standpoint of, actually trying to help them versus unleashing our turmoil on them,
Mm-hmm.
which is
mm-hmm.
what we do sometimes. So that would probably be the first step. I think we got to help ourselves so we can help them. And I
Yeah.
don't know if we even have, I think we're running out of time to do that, to be honest with you, because
I feel
So
like
you
honestly,
saying
and
First,
a
they
lot of
gotta
us
we
came up
learn.
start?
like that. We came up in
First,
households where we were, there
first
was
they
no,
need to learn how to respect
yeah,
because this generation, these kids, they're disrespectful. Like
I
they're
call
totally
these,
disrespectful.
I call these the second generation crack babies. Because the
Mm,
crack babies grew up and had babies, and that's who you're dealing with now. There's no respect because they're not being taught respect at home
right,
because
right,
they're coming from a foundation that just ain't solid.
right, right.
So,
Right,
and then the imagery we see on TV is not helping. You know what I
No,
mean? The music
not
isn't
at
helping.
all.
All that adds to the mind of the youth. So,
so
right.
are
And
we
some
at?
of the, some of them, their parents are very young too. Like their parents had kids at a very young age as well. So
That's
yeah.
true.
I think that.
So are we headed to? No, go ahead,
Oh
Twin.
no,
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say that I think that we need to restore um, a culture of mutual respect and relationship building, which is something that is just being completely lost. People don't know how to build relationships anymore. They don't know how to communicate anymore. Of course, our generation, we came up. before the internet. We came up before cell phones. We came up where you had to write a letter, or you had to go to a payphone, or there was pagers, or when you wanted to
Oh, the
connect with people,
payphones.
you got on your 10-speed bike and you rode across town to go to over to their mama house, or you picked up the telephone and you called and you spoke with people. Now there's a million ways to communicate with somebody without actually making any real contact. And so that
Yep.
has contributed to the breakdown of true and real authentic relationship building, because when you make it easier to hide behind your technology, you can make people believe anything that you want them to believe. And then when it comes down to actually interacting with people on a real level, people don't know how to do that, and they don't know how to do it respectfully either. We come up in a culture where it's become more I don't know. It's like become I don't know, normalized to be rude and disrespectful and outspoken, and say things that are offensive and rude, and just not thoughtful to how that might hit another person. So we
Right.
need to restore a culture of respect for each other, respect for ourselves, relationship building, not just how to make a relationship, but to sustain a relationship. You and I, our generation, a lot of us, we have friendships. I mean, even on this call, you and B have been friends since what, over the last 30 years almost? I have friends that I've had friends with for over the last 30 years
Yeah.
because we built real relationships from from for a lot of us from second
From the
grade,
Sandlot.
from junior high, from stuff like
Basically,
that. I see a lot of these kids
yeah,
now, they're not building any relationships. Their relationships are with their tablets or with their phones. The little that they
Yeah.
interact with each other, they don't even know how to get along anymore. Their parents are not
Right.
teaching them how to get along with others. And until we build a culture of respect, mutual respect, and relationship building and making connections, it's like we have another generation of kids who are depressed and socially awkward and don't know how to get along, and taking out their anger by shooting up their school, and doing all this craziness, because they don't know how to make connections with other people. They don't know how to go to other people for help. They don't have anyone to talk to, and to relate to. And
Yeah.
we need to restore the families and say it's okay to need one another. It's okay to say, you know what?
right.
I want a man. I
Yeah.
need a man in my life. I want to pour into him. I want him to pour into me. I get to know yourself is really, really important. Get to know yourself and what you need. B said it earlier. You have to know what's going to work for you. Like, your example about the whole cigarette thing. Like, okay, that's not going to work for me, but that may work for somebody else. You have to get to know what's going to work for you, and know what are deal breakers for you. What's going to be
Well,
acceptable.
you know what you said was I wanted to just chime in on something you said, because I think that that's so important about how we raise the kids, right? So
Hmm.
the idea, I think what's destroyed us is exactly what you said. It's such a great point about the way we communicate in social media, and the other point is not being afraid to say I need XYZ, I need you,
Yeah.
because I think that will be a change that will help in our society. Is that
Absolutely.
if we teach girls, so we got to be able to teach girls that it's okay to need a man, because at some point it became, if I need a man,
I'm weak.
I can't still have pride. Exactly. I can't have pride, and I can't be respectable as a woman. So it has to be able to be what it used to be, where it's like, yeah, yeah, I want a mate, I want a husband. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't mean that I'm weak and I can't think for myself and I can't do anything.
Hmm.
And in that respect, a man, I don't think men are suffering from that per se, that level
Okay.
of pride. But I think that we've raised women like that for about 2 generations now. That just the idea of you saying, "I really want I love to have a husband," or "I need a man." people automatically think you're desperate or you're weak, like you said, or you're not a progressive, um, independent woman, quote unquote. So you can still being independent is growing up, being an adult. You know what I'm saying? So
And at
you
the end
could
of the
be
day, everybody needs companionship. You know what I mean? Like we can try
boom,
to. When people
boom.
say I need a man, oftentimes they'll say it jokingly in the sense like they need a man to do like labor around the house. But the reality is you need it for companionship as a human being. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to have some person they can lean on, some kind of partner. Because honestly, it ain't great going through the world alone. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not ideal, but they romanticize that freedom of or that independence into much more than it probably should be because just as much as you need to be independent, you also will need companionship too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's also that's also biblical as well. The Bible says that man should not be alone. And not just man in the sense of a man, but
Human
man
beings.
meaning
Mankind, yeah,
mankind.
yeah.
Mankind. We should
Right,
not be alone. So
right. Well,
yeah.
and that's something that I think as we go forward with technology, we'll have to keep, you know, raising our children to appreciate technology as for what it is. I don't have a problem with technology, but also to appreciate the companionship of people
Mm-hmm.
and to not think that technology is gonna replace all these things. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we
And
come from a different generation, bro. We come from the early stages of like I said before internet, and then we
yeah,
watch internet grow to what it is. So we kind of
yeah,
in that middle ground at where it's like we've
yeah,
seen both sides of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's why people on our age group are kind of looking at these younger kids like, yo, y'all really missing out on
Mm-hmm.
life because we saw
right.
what life was before that. They don't
Right.
know that though. We used to
They don't
actually
know it.
go outside. They don't go outside anymore. Like
Right.
these kids
Right.
will literally sit in the house
Yeah.
All
and
day.
communicate, like y'all said, on the phone all day. Like there's
Yeah.
no physical interaction.
Yeah.
So I
That's
think to
true.
y'all's point, that's going to make it hard to sustain friendships for a solid amount of time. You know what I mean? Like, but Sue, me and
Well,
you, for
maybe.
example, me and you since what 91. You know what I mean? It's been, but we've gone through stretches of we were kicking it every day. We've gone
Yeah.
through stretches where we haven't talked for 2 years, maybe 3 years.
Years.
But
Right.
when we link back up, it's brotherhood all again. It's like we
All
never
the way.
lost a
Feels
beat.
like you guys never
Never,
Right.
disconnected.
like,
Yeah.
never missed a step. But these kids these days aren't going to be able to build relationships that will lead to that kind of bond. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
they're just so disconnected
They're
from
so
each other,
disconnected.
and
They're just
that's a
doing
problem.
anything. It's
That
just so
that's a
weird.
that's a that's a great point. It makes me a little sad to think that, but
Yeah,
that's not you're not far off. But in relation to um men and women relationships, if that's the case, then we have to find some other way to make sure that we raise them to appreciate each other and at least understand that they need each other because the at the end of the day, I do agree. Angel said it, and I think LaFonda, you said it in so many words too, that not everybody is supposed to have kids. It's not. I don't believe that everybody is supposed to have kids. Everybody has to have kids, right? But we don't want a whole society walking around like men are one species and women are another species. That's a dangerous place because the dependence on us to move mankind forward is for us to not be caught up in this idea of it's just about me. It's not
Yeah.
right.
just about me. It's about more than me.
Yeah.
And that's what, to B's point, that's what I'm trying to raise my kids to understand the larger context of what they play in society. It ain't just about you and your feelings and what you feel and
Mm-hmm.
what you want and your dopamine hits and how happy you are in life and yeah, all that stuff, your journey, that's part of it, but there's a whole world and things going on around you, and you have a duty to an extent to participate in life in a way that's not just about you and your
Right.
little cubicle of what makes you
Yeah,
happy. So,
Absolutely.
um,
yeah.
and I think men and women are carrying these men and women, and some of them are younger and some of them are our age, walking around here thinking about everything is just about me and what I'm about. Me and my own little
In your own little
experience, and
world.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Everybody's the
in their
main
own little
character.
world.
Right.
So I'm
Mhm.
open. I don't have all the answers either, but what I'm saying, I just feel like it's definitely something that through conversation I think helps because like everybody said, all of us as older people, grown people who've lived, we do have to have something that we can pass to younger people.
Right.
Otherwise, we either passing them some game or we passing them trauma. One of the two.